Did you know that 3 out of 4 crops worldwide that produce fruits and seeds for human consumption rely on pollinators? Did you know that 75% of flowering plants and 35% of food crops across the globe rely on pollinators to reproduce? Good afternoon, Chairperson, Honorable Judges, ladies and gentlemen, and my fellow 4-H members and competitors. My name is Emma Din, and this is my 6th year in 4-H as a part of the Agassiz Rainbow 4-H Club. Pollinators are essential to the production of food around the world. However, currently, pollinator extinction rates are 100 to 1,000 times higher than normal due to human impacts, but we can all do our part to help. Today, I will be showing you how to create a pollinator-friendly planter, as without those pollinators, we wouldn't be able to grow so many of the flowering plants and food crops that we love. Some plants are more attractive to pollinators than others, and that's why I'm going to show you how to make your very own pollinator-friendly planter, so we can each do our part to keep our pollinators thriving. Now you might be wondering, what kinds of creatures are pollinators? Almost everyone knows that bees are the most important pollinators, but there are other pollinators too. Birds, bats, butterflies, moths, flies, wasps, beetles, and other small mammals all help pollinate as well. Bees are attracted to flowers with open or flat, tubular flowers that have lots of pollen and nectar. A flower's scent can also be attractive to pollinators, and bright colors may lure them in. With this in mind, the plants that I will be using in my planter today are Veronica speedwell, euphorbia, coneflower, verbena, sedum, candytuft, lithidora, and thyme. There are many more plants that are attractive to pollinators though, such as members of the mint family like Agastaceae and Salvia that I had in my original presentation planter. You can also check online for more ideas or look for information on plant tags at garden centers. Another tip for choosing plants is to choose ones that bloom at different times so that you can have a colorful planter all season long. To make your pollinator-friendly planter, you will need a pot, small rocks, pollinator-friendly plants, gloves, soil, and water. To encourage root and plant growth, you could also add compost or bone meal to your soil, however it is optional to do so. These are the steps we will follow to make our planter. First, I will put on my gloves. Then I will put small rocks in the bottom of my pot. I will fill my pot with soil. I will dig holes for my plants. I will arrange my plants. I will press soil and add extra soil if needed. I will water my planter, and then I will put it in a sunny spot and remember to water it regularly. So first, I'm going to put on my gloves. Did you know that most insects, including bees, and many birds, including hummingbirds, only see in the UV light spectrum and not in the visible light spectrum that we see? Next, I'm going to put small rocks in my pot and fill it with soil. For the purposes of this demonstration, I have done this ahead of time. So next, I am going to dig holes for my plants. Did you know that to accommodate the vision of birds and insects, flowers actually have special patterns on them that attract pollinators that can only be seen in the UV light spectrum, and we can't actually see them with the human's naked eye? Next, I'm going to arrange my plants. In order for all my plants to have proper access to sunlight, you should arrange your plants in a way that the taller plants are not blocking sunlight from reaching smaller plants. So for my rectangular shaped pot, I'm going to put my taller plants in the back and my smaller ones in the front. If you had a circular pot, you may want to place your taller plants in the center and your shorter ones around the outside. Then you would need to make sure to rotate your pot so that they all get even access to sunlight. So first I'm going to put my smaller plants in. So I'm going to start with my candy cup. Candy cup has a very sweet honey-like scent that attracts pollinators. It is an evergreen perennial that is drought tolerant and deer resistant. It blooms from mid-spring to early summer with small clusters of tiny white flowers. Next, I'm going to plant my thyme. Thyme has flowers that are filled with pollen and nectar and are very attractive to bees and other pollinators. Thyme can actually be used as a mosquito repellent. If you crush some thyme leaves to release their oils, you can rub them on your skin to repel mosquitoes. Next, I will plant my Lithidora. Lithidora is also known as Grace Ward. It has deep blue flowers that are very attractive to bees and other pollinators. It is hardy down to -12 degrees Celsius and is deer and rabbit resistant. Next, I'll plant my sedum. There are many different kinds of sedum. Their succulent type leaves add visual interest, while their flowers are very attractive to bees and other pollinators. Now I will start putting my taller plants in the back. So first I'm going to start with my Veronica Speedwell and put it in the center because it's my tallest plant. Veronica Speedwell comes in a variety of red colors. And as I was looking at this particular Veronica Speedwell in my local garden store, I noticed that it was covered in bumblebees. So I knew that it would be the perfect choice for my planter. Next, I'm going to plant my Euphorbia. Euphorbia is a family of over 2,000 types. It is drought and heat tolerant with a long blooming period. Many types of Euphorbia actually have very unique looking flowers that are very attractive to bees and other pollinators. Euphorbia is also deer and rabbit resistant due to its sap, which can be quite irritating to the skin. For this reason, it's a very good idea to wear gloves while handling Euphorbia. Next, I'm going to place my coneflower. Coneflower is a perennial that is actually native to North America. It has lots of pollen and nectar in its open flowers, which makes it very attractive to bees and other pollinators, particularly butterflies, bees, and hummingbirds. And finally, I'm going to plant my verbena. There are about 150 different species of verbena. Its bright colors and sweet scent are very attractive to pollinators. And did you know that about 10% of hummingbirds are considered endangered due to habitat loss and destruction? Now that I have planted all my plants, I'm going to make sure to press soil and add extra soil where needed. Next, I'm going to water my planter. Did you know that there are about 800 bee species in Canada and over 20,000 worldwide? Mason bees and bumblebees are actually native to Canada, while honeybees were brought in from other countries. And finally, I am going to place my planter in a sunny spot and make sure to water it regularly. So sometimes water can actually pool in the bottom of your pot and it can cause plants to suffer from root rot. To prevent this, you should select a pot that already has drainage holes in the bottom, and as an extra precaution, as I did, you can add small rocks to the bottom of your pot. As well, sometimes plants come in a pot that is too small for them, and this causes them to become root bound. In order for them to grow properly when you plant them, if your plant is root bound, you should massage their roots before you plant it to make sure they can grow properly. Perfect. Now we have a beautiful planter that will keep our pollinators thriving. Now I will go over the costs for the supplies I used today. Pots vary in price depending on the material that they're used, how big they are, and what shape they are. But my pot cost $34.99. My small rocks I just collected outside my house, so they were free. My pollinator-friendly plants cost an average between $1.99 and $3.95 to an average of about $23.76. My gloves cost $7.99. The soil for the amount I used was about $5. The water was free, and this made my total $71.74. However, depending on materials you already have and the types of plants and pot and soil that you use, your price could vary greatly. Now I will summarize everything we learned. So first we went over the supplies that we need to make our planter. Next I went over the steps required to make our planter. Then I put my gloves on, filled my pot with small rocks and soil, placed my pollinator-friendly plants in the soil, watered the plants, and placed the pot in a sunny spot. Then I went over costs. Are there any questions? Are there any questions? Yes?
You were talking about plants being deer and rabbit resistant, and you got to it in one of them. What exactly makes the rest of the plants resistant to those animals?
The question has been asked, what makes the plants resistant to deer and rabbits? I think they just don't like the smell and taste of the plants. Certain ones, like the euphorbia, do actually have sap that is irritating to their skin, and that's why they avoid it. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Are there any further questions?
I'm just wondering, did you give any consideration to the fact of annuals versus perennials on plants when you're choosing your plants?
The question has been asked, did I give any consideration to annuals versus perennials? So annuals are plants that only stay for 1 year and then they die over the winter, whereas perennials come back year after year. So most of the plants in my planter are actually perennials, but there's limited selection at this time of year for plants that I can choose. So earlier in the spring when I did this presentation, I had a lot more selection of plants, but at this time of year there's a lot less selection, so I just had to go with the ones that would be most attractive to pollinators. Does this answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Are there any further questions? Are there any further questions? Are there any further questions? If there are no further questions, this concludes my speak and show on how to make a pollinator-friendly planter.